week 6. We're just getting ready to start the slow Morse course, and in San Francisco it's just before 2 o'clock in the morning, New York 5 o'clock in the morning, London 10 o'clock in the morning, Paris 11 o'clock in the morning, and in Moscow almost midday. Singapore, it's almost 5 o'clock in the evening, same for Hong Kong and also Beijing. And in Tokyo, it's almost 6 o'clock. So welcome to week 6 of the slow Morse course. This is Nick, VK7 Whiskey Whiskey, with the club call sign VK7 Tango Alpha Zulu, on behalf of the Northern Tasmanian Amateur Radio Club. Now, over the next 30 minutes, we continue with the final group of letters. Yeah, the final group of letters that you learned last week. Uniform Yankee Lima, Kilo, Whiskey and Foxtrot, and introduce the first group of numbers for you to learn for next week. Now, remember, this course isn't just about learning the numbers and the letters and punctuation. It's also about recognizing abbreviations, the protocol, how you go about having a contact, but it goes further than that. We are going to soon talk about transmitting, yes, and working on your rhythm. And then, of course, later on in the course, not too far away, we will be looking at very simple CW transmitters. Okay. Just remember, if you're practicing listening to live Morse code, don't overdo it. If you're not used to concentrating for long periods, then just try listening for 5 minutes at a time and gradually increase that time when you're comfortable. Right, first we're going to begin with the manual Morse sheet like last week, except this will be the last week we do this, as I want you to change from using the manual Morse sheet to our conventional learning method. You see, you're already familiar with the letters, and whether you realize it or not, you've actually subconsciously learned to translate the sounds of dits and dars into letters. More on this next week. I have prepared an additional manual Morse sheet recording called Week 6, which will be available after the streaming this week. But tonight, for those of you who are using the manual Morse sheet, try something different. Try not using it tonight. Just sit there relaxed and with your eyes closed, or with no manual Morse sheet in front of you. Try to recognize the letters being sent. Perhaps you could imagine using the sheet, but still write down each letter. Okay, here we go. Switching to CW. Make sure you're ready with your pencil sharpened, or your pen, or your plume. Here we go. Did you get that? Maybe you only managed to copy some of the letters, and that's okay, the ones that you know that are used regularly. Okay. What I sent was, see, I know it works. Sierra, Echo, Echo, India, Kilo, November, Oscar, Whiskey, India, Tango, Whiskey, Oscar, Romeo, Kilo, Sierra. See, I know it works. Right. And we're now going to go to the conventional way of learning Morse code. And we will practice the letters that you learnt last week, ready for this week. Uniform Yankee Lima, Kilo Whiskey Foxtrot, UYLKWF, using Farnsworth spacing. Remember, the characters are sent, in actual fact, tonight the characters are sent, as I did sneakily last week, at about 12 words per minute, but with large gaps between them. And as you continue to progress, as I've said before, the gaps become shorter. Right. Incidentally, did you know that you can send secret CW from one friend to another? If you're sitting in a diner or perhaps a cafe and someone's sitting at the other table, if you put your hand on the table and you use your index finger, your first finger, you could actually use it to send a dit, and you could use your thumb to send a da. Oh, this opens up a whole world of secret communications across a table. A dit with the index finger using the tip of the finger, and a da using your thumb. Right. And I also mentioned last week you can get a lot of practice by writing the letters you're studying on a piece of paper as dits and das, not dots and dashes, and glancing at them whenever you have a couple of minutes. This is VK7 Tango Alpha Zulu, club call sign for the Northern Tasmanian Amateur Radio Club with Nick, VK7 Whiskey Whiskey with the slow Morse course. Right, we're now going to switch to CW and go through the 6-letter character groups. First of all, I'm going to go through tonight's letters once in series, and then each letter 3 times in series, and then we'll go to the groups, the 8 groups that I usually put together using tonight's letters. UYLKWF, Uniform Yankee Lima, Kilo Whiskey Foxtrot. Here we go. Switching to CW, please stand by. Okay, now get ready for the 8 groups using those letters. Here we go. Yes, I started to include the context separator. Da-di-di-di-da. The equal sign in Morse code used instead of full stops or commas when you're changing what you're talking about. Perhaps you're talking about your antenna, and then you decide to talk about the weather. So instead of putting a full stop saying antenna here is a dipole, you send da-da-di-di-da, the context separator, and then start talking about the weather. So, there we had 8 groups using the last lot of letters in the course. That's the whole alphabet you've dealt with. So this is what I sent. Uniform Yankee, Lima, Lima, Kilo, Kilo. That was the first group. And the second group was Foxtrot, Kilo, Lima, Uniform, Uniform, Lima. And then I sent the context separator, da-da-di-di-da. It's B for Bravo and T for Tango. Think of those 2 letters joined up. Da-da-di-di-da. And then I sent the next group, which was Yankee Foxtrot Lima, Uniform Uniform Kilo. Again, I sent the context separator. I want you to get used to it. Da-da-di-di-da. And the next group was Whiskey Uniform Whiskey, Uniform Foxtrot Foxtrot. Yep, you guessed it, da-da-di-di-da, the context separator. And the last 4 groups were as follows: Yankee, Lima, Yankee, Uniform, Kilo, Kilo. Again, the context separator, the equal sign, da-da-di-di-da. And then Uniform, Whiskey, Whiskey, Uniform, Foxtrot, Lima, da-da-di-di-da. Whiskey, Uniform, Foxtrot, Kilo, Lima, Yankee. Da-da-di-di-da, the context separator. And the final group spelt out the word fluffy. Fluffy. Foxtrot, Lima, Uniform, Foxtrot, Foxtrot, Yankee. Right. Now, with all the weeks that we've learned so far, with all the letters, well, this is what I'm going to be sending next, using all the letters in the alphabet. Let's see how you go with this little lot. There are 8 groups with 5 letters in each group. This is VK7 Tango Alpha Zulu on behalf of the Northern Tasmanian Amateur Radio Club with Nick, VK7 Whiskey Whiskey, at the key or the microphone. And I have to make mention that the weather conditions might be a bit staticky tonight because Jordan, VK3 Alpha Charlie Uniform, records this for streaming live on the internet, live off the frequency, which we use, 3580. Incidentally, we use this frequency because you can still get crystals on 3579, etc. It's close enough to 3.580 megahertz on 80 meters. So it makes it very easy to build a simple CW QRP rig. Anyway, more of that later. Right, what we're going to do now is 8 groups of letters using all the characters of the alphabet. Please stand by, switching to CW. Did you get that? Well, I made some sneaky changes to that one, even though I sent it in 5-character groups, 5-letter groups. The message I sent was, well done on having at this far learning mouse CD. I'll go through each of the groups. The first group, Whiskey, Echo, Lima, Lima, Delta. And then the next one, Oscar, November, Echo, Oscar, November. And the third group, Hotel, Alpha, Victor, India, November. And the fourth group, Golf, Echo, Tango, Tango, Hotel. Next group, India, Sierra, Foxtrot, Alpha, Romeo. And the final three groups, Lima, Echo, Alpha, Romeo, November. The last two groups, India, November, Golf, Mike, Oscar. And the final group, Uniform, Sierra, Echo, Charlie, Delta. Why did I do that? Well, I didn't want you to figure out that I was sending mostly plain text English words. Well done on having it this far. You see, if you were journalizing and trying to guess, you might have thought that I was going to send after having got this far. And then, of course, learning, and maybe you thought I was going to send Morse code, but of course I changed it to mouse CD, an abbreviation for code, Charlie Delta. Right, there we are. That's all the letters we've learnt so far. We now move on to numbers. Now, I'll go through next week's numbers, and the numbers are 1, 2, 3, 9, 0. 1, 2, 3, 9, 0. And you may wonder why on earth I picked those. Well, there's a reason which I'll explain next week, but it's to do with making things easier in the learning process. So here are the next week's numbers. I'll go through each one once and then 3 times. If you look at the International Morse code chart, you'll see that the numbers follow a sequence. Incidentally, if you're listening to Morse code with letters and a number suddenly pops up, it actually becomes quite obvious because a number consists of 5 parts using dits and dars, whereas letters contain no more than 4 parts. Anyway, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 9, 0. Switching to CW. VK7 Tango Alpha Zulu, club call sign for the Northern Tasmanian Amateur Radio Club. Now, those numbers, if you look at your chart, your international Morse code chart, you'll see that the numbers gradually progress with their dits. Number 1 is dit, dit, da, 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 da. 1 dit and 4 das. Number 2 has 2 dits and 3 das. Number 3 has 3 dits and 2 das. Number 4 has 4 dits and 1 da. So guess what number 5 is? Yes, you're right, 5 dits. And then the sequence is reversed. Number 6 has 1 da and 4 dits. Number 7 has 2 das and 3 dits, and so on. So we're only dealing with 1, 2, 3, 9, and 0. So that's what we're going to be dealing with next week. Now, you may have seen one of Jordan's videos on YouTube having a contact with me with a 1-valve transmitter that sounds like an owl. Well, it's a chirpy signal, and that's one of the signals from yesteryear. That's what a lot of Morse code sounded like, because we couldn't afford to go out and buy a rig, buy a transmitter. We were lucky if we had a reasonable receiver, and we'd build a transmitter, because transmitters, particularly with Morse code, are much simpler to build than the receivers. Right. Don't forget, you've got resources, the American Radio Relay League, the Radio Society of Great Britain, and the Wireless Institute of Australia, VK2 Whiskey India on 3.6 and 99, all have CW recordings, or in the case of the Wireless Institute of Australia, they have the beacon running on 3699 24 hours a day with different speeds of CW. Don't forget Tuesday night slow Morse on 40 meters run by VK2 Kilo India, and you'll find his email on qrz.com. Worthwhile contacting him, because he is also encouraging people, and we are having contact with people now from Europe on the slow Morse evening. Right, well that's about it for the I can't help laughing. We also run this on Discord, and Jordan's put up a little mouse with the CW key. I mean, a real live mouse. Anyway, well, it looks alive. Maybe it's sleeping. Next week, we're going to talk about transmitting CW, rhythm, getting the rhythm. Anyway, we've just about run out of time. We'll look forward to talking about Morse code readers as well, and terrible Chinese CW transceivers with a reader. See you next week. This is VK7 Tango Alpha Zulu on behalf of the Northern Tasmanian Amateur Radio Club, now closing the slow Morse course before we slip down to 3.567 for the technical net. Thanks for tuning in.